For 380,000 years, the universe was blind, dark, silent. At least, that's what we've been told. But what if I told you that's not true? What they taught you about the birth of the universe may have left out one of the most crucial parts, perhaps even deliberately. Because there is something deeply unsettling about the story of the first light. Something scientists avoid talking about. A contradiction too disturbing to accept without resistance. Right after the Big Bang, the cosmos wasn't a sea of sparkling stars. It was an opaque hell, a dense plasma of particles and radiation, where photons, the particles of light, were trapped, colliding like prisoners in an overcrowded cell. There was no visible light. There was no seeing. Then suddenly, everything changed. Something happened. A phenomenon that, to this day, remains wrapped in doubt. The universe became transparent. Electrons joined with protons to form atoms. Light was, for the first time, freed. And the entire cosmos lit up in a silent flash, echoing through eternity. That explosion of light is still out there, traveling through time and space. It's what we call the cosmic microwave background radiation. But there's a detail few people know. That light isn't uniform. It whispers patterns, codes, fragments of something larger. In 1965, two engineers at Bell Labs detected a strange noise coming from the sky. At first, they blamed pigeons nesting in their satellite dish. But it wasn't birds. It was the residual radiation from the birth of the universe. And within it, the first traces of a message no one expected to find. How can random noise contain structure? Hot and cold. Maps. Fluctuations that behave as if they follow laws or a design. Some of the bolder physicists began to suspect. What if the first light wasn't just a physical flash, but the echo of something encoded? Why are these variations so precise, so organized? From its very birth, the universe seems to have been guided by something. Not by chance, but by intention. But who, or what, could have left marks in a newborn universe? And why do the great research centers stay silent about this possibility? Perhaps because the truth is too disturbing to say aloud. What if we're staring at the signature of creation and simply failing to recognize the pattern? They told us it was just noise. That those tiny fluctuations detected in the cosmic radiation were natural variations of matter. Randomness. Entropy at work. But they were lying. At the turn of the century, satellites like WMAP and Planck began to map the cosmic radiation with unprecedented precision. The images revealed something inexplicable. Complex patterns, almost like fingerprints, distributed across the universe with a symmetry too suspicious to ignore. It was as if the universe had been calibrated. As if someone had set the initial conditions with absurd precision, so exact that even the slightest deviation would mean the collapse of everything. Some call this fine-tuning. Others avoid the term, as if it were cursed, because to admit it is to suggest the unthinkable, that the universe was engineered. But the most disturbing part was still to come. A group of physicists at MIT, in 2003, conducted a detailed analysis of the anisotropies in the cosmic radiation. They wanted to better understand what caused the fluctuations. They expected to find only thermal noise. But instead, they found something too strange to be coincidence. The fluctuations seemed to form geometric figures. Some eerily resembled known fractal patterns. Others resembled ancient symbols, recognizable only to those deeply familiar with old human cultures. One physicist involved in the project, who remained anonymous, wrote in a closed scientific forum, "These patterns are not natural. They were placed there. It's a warning, or a signature." The official publication of the study never mentioned it. It was dismissed as a computational artifact. But the raw data was erased from servers just weeks later. Who gave the order? Why? Some believe it was the US government. Others say private institutions with NASA access intervened. But one thing is certain, they don't want us to know what lies behind the first light. Because perhaps, at the very moment the universe became transparent, something saw us too. And perhaps that light didn't just reveal the cosmos. Perhaps it was a signal, an activation pulse, the beginning of a story that doesn't start with humanity, but with something much older, something that has been watching ever since. It was during a joint expedition between the European Space Agency and Kyoto University that the impossible occurred. They weren't just studying the cosmic background radiation. They were trying to decode it. For decades, the scientific community believed this radiation was a passive relic of the early universe, a mute echo. But what if it was somehow alive, pulsing with a frequency our ears can't hear, but that our technology is just beginning to detect? In the underground lab at Aso, Japan, an experiment was conducted in absolute secrecy, translating the microfluctuations of radiation into sound, vibrations, more specifically, interpretable sound frequencies. The result was terrifying. By amplifying certain radiation segments and filtering them with AI neural networks, a harmonic pattern emerged, a repetitive sound, almost like a non-human melody. But that wasn't all. There were rhythmic variations repeating in cosmic time cycles, like the heartbeat of something massive, something still pulsing in the background fabric of the universe. They called it the forbidden frequency. When scientists tried to broadcast that frequency back into space, the systems failed. Not due to technical error, but sabotage. One of the Japanese engineers involved in the project, now missing, left a single anonymous message on a hidden scientific forum in the deep web. "You don't understand what you're trying to play. That's not sound. It's a code. A recall signal." That same week, the lab was mysteriously shut down. The data seized. Any mention of the experiment erased from scientific publications. But someone copied the data and shared a segment of the frequency. When an independent group of European astrophysicists listened to the sound, something unusual happened. Two of them reported having the exact same dream that night. A black sky, crossed by cyclopean structures floating in absolute silence. A massive eye, slowly spinning over a field of stars. And a suffocating sensation that it had been here before. They began asking too many questions, and disappeared within months. Coincidence? Or has something been monitoring those who try to decipher the first light? Perhaps the universe isn't just watching. Perhaps we're being tested. They swore to keep it secret. Because long before modern satellites detected the cosmic radiation, someone already knew it existed. In lost manuscripts, buried beneath monasteries in ancient Syria and sealed crypts in the Himalayas, there are records of an anonymous brotherhood who claimed to know the sounds of the universe even before humanity learned to gaze at the stars. They called themselves the Order of the Void. What this order sought was not faith. It was scientific revelation ahead of its time. They believed the universe emitted an initial breath, a type of vibration perceivable only in altered states of consciousness or isolated locations where the world was thinner. For centuries, they were ridiculed. But when modern scientists began recording background radiation, the same patterns described by these ancient monks, in symbolic language and primitive math, appeared once again. Rudimentary drawings resembling the geometry detected by the Planck telescope. Star maps with distortion points identical to the anomalies NASA still tries to explain. But there's a common element in all those documents. A symbol. 3 interlocking circles, like orbits. And at the center, a black dot. The inverse eye, they called it. An entity or consciousness that had observed the birth of the universe from within. The order believed the first light wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate act. A calculated ignition point. A spark designed to create the conditions necessary for life and consciousness. But not human life. According to them, humans were not in the original plan. We're an unexpected consequence. A glitch in the pattern. And that glitch drew attention. The darkest texts from the order warned that one day, the very radiation of creation would turn against those who tried to decipher it too far. Like a slow poison. A curse against excessive curiosity. Stolen documents from the Vatican indicate that in 1943, a group of priest-scientists tried to recreate the sounds of the first light in a secret experiment based on the Order's archives. 3 died within a week. 2 went insane, and the last vanished inside the acoustic chamber. Everything was classified, but the manuscript they were trying to translate survived. It ends with a phrase in Latin: "He who gazes upon the first light shall meet the gaze of what does not sleep." Now, the inevitable question: if this light holds a consciousness, is it waiting, or simply watching until the right moment to act?